Hey, it's Rob. Welcome to Axel's Garage. We're out here losing the light and working on Amanda's TJ, which Steven's been driving. And he said the battery gauge was not showing anything. When he first started up, it would come up and then just go down. So we came out and we did a little diagnostic, and I want to take you through that. We think it's the alternator because the gauge is not showing anything. So usually when it's not charging, the gauge doesn't show anything. So we're going to see. Steve-O, you going to start it up?
Yep.
Start it up. So on older vehicles that aren't as computer controlled as the newer stuff, and you can even get away with it with some of the newer stuff, but something, you know, this is computer controlled, is this fuel injected? It is fuel injected. But you can still, in something, you know, 97, you can get away with that. It's running. We're going to disconnect the negative terminal on the battery and to see if the vehicle will run under the power of the alternator. Because if the alternator is good, then when we disconnect the battery and take the battery out of the equation, the engine should stay running because the alternator should put out enough electrical power to run the engine. So I'm going to come over here. And then I'm just going to loosen up the negative terminal. And I'm going to wiggle it off. And the engine dies. So, good indicator that it's the alternator. Now, if you have, you know, tools that can diagnose a charging system or a starting system or a starting and charging and battery system like this this snap-on that we have, which is a Josie Special. This is the DTAC Plus. I've done a video on it previously. It's real old, but it works. And it will check your starting system, it will check your charging system, and it will charge, maintain, and load test your batteries. We've already gone through this process, so I'm not going to go through this process. What I am going to do while I have the battery disconnected and we make this repair is I'm going to charge the battery up. But it does do an alternator test, and you can see I left the ticket out. It did an alternator test, and it tested it at idle speed, it tested it at high idle, and it determined that the alternator failed on its charging. So the alternator is not putting out enough to charge the battery and to run the vehicle. So this worked out real great. I'm sure you could probably buy something like this that's handheld nowadays. Probably costs a decent buck. I don't know if they make inexpensive ones, and I have no idea. I've always just used the, you know, take the negative battery terminal off while it's running method. But because I had this, I was able to use it. So what we'll do is we're going to go over and we are going to charge it, conventional battery, automatic charging, and we're going to let this thing charge while we change the alternator. So over here we have a new replacement alternator. It's an AC Delco. I'll link it in the description below. And our first step is going to be to loosen up the belt so that we can get this alternator out. So pretty much right here you have a sort of like an idler pulley, or it could be considered a tensioner pulley. I'm falling off my milk crate. Steven, you want to stay behind the milk crate so it doesn't slide on me? All right, and it's got a 15mm bolt on it, and what you want to do is loosen that 15mm bolt. Holy cow, why is it so tight? Man, it's not supposed to be that tight. It is really tight. Put this thing on here. Let me go so I can go this way and slip off and hurt myself. Man, that is tight.
Oh, we did a lot of big 4th-down stops.
That was a lot tighter than it usually is. All right, so you loosen that up, and now you have a bolt right here, and that is a long bolt that is going to slide this pulley up and down. The reason why we had to crack this loose was so that the pulley can slide up and down. The bolt on the pulley and the bolt up top are 15mm. So what I do is take a 15 on an extension, slide it in there, try to get it on that bolt. Being careful not to break the coolant temperature sensor, so sometimes it's easier to pop that off. Then you can get on the bolt a little easier. I have no battery in there.
It was supposed to rain last week and it didn't.
Yeah, he's doing tonight.
So you can see, as soon as I started doing this, this pulley starts moving. So as I loosen this one, pulley moves, and the belt is almost enough where I could pull it off of this idler. And once I get it off of this idler, I should be able to have enough slack in it. To pull it off of the alternator as well. Alright. Now, it's off the alternator, and I'm just going to let it hang like that, and now we can just concern ourselves with the alternator, which is over here. So here's our top. Not on the back?
The right size.
Yeah, no, there was a nut on the back. That nut right there.
You just took off.
Well, it loosened up. I don't know how it loosened up, but I don't know. There's a nut and bolt on the top. Just looking down for the bottom one. I see the one on the bottom. I don't know if there's a nut on the back side of it. That one didn't have a nut on the back, that's for sure. Alright. So we got it out of the bracket. Now it's, can we get it out of the spot without removing anything else? And we still have the wires connected on the back, which we're going to have to get off. So I'm lifting it up and out of the way. And I do have access to the wires. So this one here. Yeah, well, it's filled with all my electrical stuff. You know, you want to break my job, Steve-O, you could very easily go use your car. All right, Robbie?
Amanda has one.
Well, no, Amanda does not have your car. Your car has been sitting at Grandma Rose's.
Yeah. You'd be happy I use this. I can't do anything stupid because everybody sees it. It stands out.
All right, and now I got to get this off.
You need to get off.
Is this? Steve, can you grab the new alternator out of the box?
Maybe see what says that.
Yeah, I don't know if all of this has to come off. Just want to see how the, oh, so it's got those two and this. Okay. Okay, so this one's got to come off. Wow, I've never seen an alternator with so many connections on it, to be honest with you.
What's the point of having an electric one if you don't use it?
What's the point of having a what?
An electric one if you don't use it. Okay.
Because it's only a little thing.
Yeah, but like, zoom, zoom, done.
I'm going to zoom you. Alright, and now I got these two little baby ones.
Put on my blinkers. Click.
Yeah, because you got no battery left. Alright, so that fits.
It was only like a day.
Happy now, Rob?
See?
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 Soon was right. You're an ass. You know that?
I
Listening
think
to
it
you.
was-
Because then if you put a bend in it, you lose.
I don't think it would be that big.
Lose force.
I don't want it now.
It's stuck in there.
Are there new ones on the new alternator?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just two. Now this. Come on. Jesus. That's on it too? Holy Jesus. Holy cow. Huh? White cow? Where's that one? I think it's holy cow because it's like a, is it a Hindu thing?
Yes. I think the cow's a god, that's why they make beef. Not beef, is that Muslim? I think it's Muslim.
You happy I used that, Remy? Good. I'm glad. Okay. Oh.
If we won, we're playing Garden City.
All right, now, Robbie, you're pushing the car away.
No, it's good here. I made sure to do that because I knew you guys would be doing that.
All right. And I got the old alternator out. Oh, that was more of a pain in the ass than it should have been. Take our new alternator. We got to take these off. We need these. These take a 7mm socket. Thanks, Steven. Okay, take these, which take a 10mm. Just like that. That's our 10, our 7. Now we got our contacts. These apparently are some kind of grounds. These are going to be for the voltage regulator, and here's your main charging line. What I am going to do is take some silicone paste, otherwise known as waterproof dielectric grease, and I am going to put some in there. I am not trying to get it on the plastic. It's just that there's no easy way to get it in there. I want to get it on the terminal, so I'm making a mess to get it on the terminal. And then I'm going to wipe it on that stud, and I'm going to wipe it on that stud. I'm going to wipe it on the bottom of that stud, just around like that, and I'm going to give it a little around like that. Now, this is not necessary. This is an extra step, and the reason why I am doing this extra step is because Jeeps like to rust, and in a lot of these circumstances I would use white grease on a lot of my bolt threads so that they don't rust and corrode all over the place. Instead, I am just wiping some dielectric grease on there, and as I put the ring terminals back on here, it's going to push it down to where the contacts are, and the same thing on this. So I'm going to wipe off all that excess so that some of the dielectric grease that got on the stud is going to get pushed down to where the terminal actually makes contact. It's going to hopefully avoid corrosion in the area and keep a better electrical contact. So now that it's completely dark out, I can come down here with the alternator in the same orientation that it was, and I'll just rest it right here, similar to how I had the old one resting. Now I can take these terminals and make sure that they're clean, which they're fairly clean. I'm just gonna wipe a little grease on here on these terminals. Like I said, this is not necessary, but it's probably overkill. This is just what I like to do, especially on Jeeps, especially where we live in New York, where they salt and brine the crap out of everything. We have a lot of problems with corrosion, and using white grease on your nuts and bolts and dielectric grease on your electrical connections is really good preventative maintenance, because these things tend to have issues based a lot on climate and where you where you live and what they use on the roads. Snug them up. They don't have to be overly tight, just good and snug. Not really good and tight, more good and snug. A little, 7mm. Okay, so that one's snug. That one's snug. The two little ones are snug. Now the only one that I have left is the charging line, which comes in like this. I'm gonna balance that there. Okay, new nuts down all the way by hand. That one good and tight. Good and snug. Good and snug, good and tight. So now my original hardware is not going to be these or these. It's just going to be my top bolt and my bottom bolt. All these were from the old one that came with the new alternator. So I can take this alternator and I can slide it into position just like that. I'm going to take my white grease on the top bolt, and the reason why we use white grease on the top bolt is going to be, those of you who've been watching me for a long time know that line. You know the line, Steve-O?
Nope.
You don't know the line? Come on, really, Steve-O?
I might if you say it.
You're going to put some white grease on the bolt. And the reason why you're going to put white grease on the bolt is to make this job a little easier for the next guy. Because the next guy may very well be you. That's the line. Okay. So I got that hand tight. Now I'm going to take the bottom bolt. Put a little white grease on the threads on the bottom bolt to make the job easier for the next guy, because that next guy may very well be you. So you should be happy we're using the drop stuff a lot. This is actually my favorite ratchet ever. I got this my first year in college. This was the first snap-on tool I ever bought off the snap-on truck.
It's the snap-on truck, like the tailgate.
It's the tool truck. When the tool truck comes to the repair shop, you know, to sell tools to the mechanics. Right, I got that bottom one. Yeah, the snap-on truck is a tool truck, and the snap-on truck, I can't believe you don't know what the snap-on truck is. It's like the Boy's Head truck with cold cuts. Boy's Head truck goes to the delis and sells cold cuts to the delis. The snap-on truck goes to the service stations and repair shops and sells tools to the mechanics. And that's really the only way you used to be able to buy snap-on was on the truck. There was no buying online back then. There was no online back then. So Snap-on, the only people that had Snap-on tools were real mechanics. And my first year in college, and my first and second year in college, me and a couple of the guys that went to the college, and like 2 local guys. And I'm gonna take this belt. Belt should go right on here. And it goes under here. Like this. So anyway, me and a couple of the guys, I think it was one or 2 kids that lived locally there, and like 1 or 2 kids that went to the school. We worked in the local local mobile station, and we did like oil changes and shit like that. Can you guys get the light down here, Steve? I can't see the belt. A little bit on this pulley and stretching it over like that. Now, I see your light. Make sure I got it on the bottom pulley. Yep. It's on the bottom pulley, good. All right, I'm back here on the top pulley. And I got it going around the tensioner. And now what I want to do is grab my 15 millimeter on the long extension. Okay, and I can bring it up here and put it back on that nut. And when I put it on that nut, this pulley, Steven, if you come in on an angle this way, that bottom pulley is going to come up and apply tension to the belt, because you can see right now how loose the belt is. So as it comes up, it starts moving. You can see how that pulley's moving up, right, Steve?
Yeah. Yeah.
Should be pretty good. It keeps shining light in my eyes, you know that? So now all we have to do is tighten this pulley back up, and if you remember, this is where we started and it was super tight. Doesn't need to be so super tight, like that's plenty tight enough. All right, so that's on there. Now that we got done, come across over here and look what we have. Charge time was 21 minutes, so it's completely charged. Final voltage, 13.63, available Colt cranking amp 683. So we are charged up. I don't want to print that. I'm just going to get out of that menu there, and we can take off our battery charging leader. So the story about the snap-on wrench was, Stephen, I didn't get a chance to finish. Huh? Oh, it's not Stephen behind the camera. It's Robbie behind the camera now. So the story about, Robbie, can you come over here? I'm hooking up the battery now. So the story about the snap-on wrench was that this ratchet, come over here. This ratchet, right? It's the bent handle swivel head. It's an F7, or is that an FC? F732A snap-on. One of the mechanics had this, and I found it to be the most versatile swivel head ratchet I've ever used. It was the first one that had a bent handle that I ever used, and I just absolutely loved it. So when the snap-on guy came, and he came into the place and he looked at the kids who were working, which was me and the other kids, you know, the local kids and the kids from the college, I said, yeah, I want one. And he was like, really? I go, yep, that's gonna be my first snap-on tool that I ever buy. It wasn't the last. I only have a few snap-on tools, but I could not find another brand ratchet that had the bent handle and the swivel head for many years. And I still have never seen one similar to that in another brand, whether it be, you know, any brand for that matter, besides one of the professional tool brands. What I'm using is some corrosion stop on the terminals here. I'm going to try to spray some on without making a mess. These terminals, in a previous video where we did a diagnostic on the battery, we had wire brushed them and cleaned them up. So I just put a little of the corrosion stop because we live in the Northeast, like I said, and the salt and crap and whatnot. All right, so that's it. Our battery's charged and hooked back up again. Our alternator is in, the connections are made, the belt is on, all our tools are out of the engine bay. Steve-O, you can start it up. All right, Steve-O's got it started up. How's that gauge looking? Yep, that means it's charging, so the gauge is up to 14. All right, so that was it. It's dark out, and now it's really dark, but we got the alternator in. It only took us, what, 45 minutes or so, even with all the banter and bullshit that we had going on. So really, it's a half-hour repair on something like this. The dielectric grease and the white grease is optional. That's up to you, depending on where you live. Up here, things rust a lot from the brine on the roads. That's why we always use white grease on the bolts and dielectric grease on all our electrical contacts. But Steve-O's good to go out tonight. He's got a fully charged battery and a brand new alternator, and that's it today from Axel's Garage. I'll link everything we used in the description below, and as always, thanks for watching.